The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Welcome to Consciously Rising. I'm your host, Jeff Renel. You're listening to us on Worldwide Digital Broadcast TV. If not, you should be, for sure. This weekend, I was at a 5D event here in Las Vegas and got to meet a couple different interesting people. Next to me is definitely one of them. We got Reverend Polk here. You're an experiencer, correct?
Absolutely.
An author of these two wonderful books here. Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, which I'm sure you got a lot of controversy over that.
Absolutely, that's what I wanted.
And then also we have The Blue Beings, a Visitation at the UFO conference, which we'll be covering some information on both of these books here today. How are you doing today?
I'm great,
man. Thank you for showing up, man. I'm really privileged.
You know, I enjoyed the conference, the 5D conference at the Alexis Resort and Casino. But I'm glad that it's over now so that, you know, we can just let our hair down and not have any regimented schedule and actually drive around and see Vegas, and we've been doing that this morning.
Awesome. Well, it's a beautiful city. It's my hometown, so I love it, so I hope you're enjoying it. There's a lot of amazing things. If you ever need any tips, just let me know, and I'll steer you in the right direction.
All right.
So, I want to find out a little bit about you, what your experiences have been. And let's really quick, what exactly is an experiencer for our listening audience that might not be familiar with that term?
Okay, the term experiencer, I don't like it at all. And the reason I don't like it is because it's too vague. When I first heard it, I didn't even know what it meant, and I had been an experiencer my whole life. So what does experiencer mean? Experiencer means that you thought you saw a UFO, all the way running the other side of the gamut to you're an alien abductee and you have been your whole life. So anything in between is considered an experiencer.
Okay. So is that, I thought that was the term that you were using over the weekend, so that's why I used it just now. Is that something you use for yourself, or do you use a different term?
I prefer the term abductee because that more accurately describes what's been happening to me since I was in the womb when my mom was pregnant and she got taken back in 1969.
Okay. And yeah, to me it sounds like using experiencer is just like trying to be the political correct way of saying something.
It is. I mean, some people are, you know, a little ruffled by the term abductee, but I like to do it because I like to kind of, you know, smack people in the head and let them know that it's real. And the majority, let me disclaimer everything up front and say that the vast majority of my abductions, I pray for them to happen, and the vast majority of them are overly positive. And they actually enable me to author these books. I receive downloads of information that is corroborated by other researchers. Where they're researching the information, I'm receiving it by way of downloads. And you corroborate the information that you receive through downloads with authors that have been authors for 20, 30 years. And when they agree with you, and then when you have a number of psychic mediums agree with you on your books, it's vindication, and it vets you also. It makes you feel good about what you're receiving.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, because that's one thing I'm really trying to focus on with this show, is not do anything on the fear-based end of anything, but I do want to cover these type of stories and experiences because they are real, they're out there, and a lot of it, like you're just describing, shouldn't be feared.
Exactly, and here's something that's very important. If you think you've seen a UFO, or if you know you've seen UFOs, if you feel like you're being visited at night, don't ever allow fear to creep up in your mind, because the energy you project out into the universe is the manifestation of the energy that will come back to you.
Yeah.
So stay positive, especially when you don't have reasons to be positive. That is the time that you stay the most positive.
Yeah, and that should be every day of your life, at every moment of your life as well, too.
Yeah, it's not how we deal with adversity. It's not how we deal with success. It's how we deal with adversity that makes us who we are. And I'm becoming much better at it, and you know, it's always a long curve to negotiate
personal journey always.
Yeah. So anyway, my journey has been rather incredible.
So, would you mind sharing with us when you first realized that you were an abductee? Because from what I understood from your book, that you didn't know right away, or you had an idea, but you thought it was a dream for a long time of your life.
Absolutely. So that goes back to when I first remembered being abducted. I was abducted with my mother while she was pregnant with me in 1969. But the first one that I actually can remember was when I was 15 years old. My parents were rich. We lived in a $1 million condo on the ocean in Daytona Beach called the Aliki Atrium. We had the penthouse suite, the top 3 floors facing the Atlantic, all sliding glass doors facing the Atlantic to the north and to the south. And so one night, I'm in my bedroom, and I think I see the moon. And it's not unusual to see the full moon cascading on the undulating tides that are gently crashing into the Atlantic shore. But this particular night, it was completely different. This moon started to descend and descend and descend even more, to the point where I start to question, what am I even seeing here? And then I realized, oh my God, that is not the moon. It's not a full moon. I see it. I see the reflection on the ocean. And then all of a sudden, bam, I black out. I don't remember anything. And then all of a sudden I come to, and there's 3 grays on the outside of my sliding glass door facing the ocean. And I look at them, they look at me, and they were 3.5 feet tall, something like that. And the one in the middle, there was 3 of them, one in the middle was slightly taller than the other 2. And then they pushed their heads up against the glass, kind of like kids looking at a tiger in a zoo or something like that. And then they traversed their bodies and minds. I don't know if they had spirits, but they traversed their bodies and minds. Next thing I know, they're on the inside of the glass, walking towards my bed. And they rapidly approach the bed, and I look more specifically at the one in the middle. I look him right in his eyes, and I'd never ever forget this in my life, but the big almond-shaped wraparound black eyes, and I black out. I don't remember anything. Next thing I know, I wake up in the morning. I had to go to school the next day, and my front is hurting, my genitals were hurting, my backside was hurting. And I was kind of shaking it off, going, you know, what happened? Was that a dream? I'm not exactly sure what happened. I go to school, and I don't know, maybe halfway through the day, the pain started to subside, and I kind of just let it go, and I honestly just wrote it off as a dream. And it really didn't even come back to me until I almost died. I've almost died probably 20 times, but this time more specifically, it was 2009. My grandfather died. My name is Reverend John Marcus Polk. My grandfather, John Marcus Polk, I'm his namesake, his oldest grandson. So I fly from Florida to Texas to go to a wake and then a funeral for my grandfather. And, you know, you fly in, you get in a rental car, first thing you do is go to a wake. You know, just gut-wrenching, get there, everybody's crying. Casket is open, and I wait for a private moment where I can go up and I can, you know, just really telepathically communicate with his spirit, his soul, because I do that. I work with angels on the other side to help earthbounders cross over to the other side. Anyway, I touch his hand and I start crying. And it was almost like some dark entity reached inside of my respiratory anatomy and started to grab my lungs and my throat, and I could not breathe. I was choking on my own tears. And I was starting to completely and totally freak out. I was scared. I was really scared. And then I remember I start to lean over, and I'm starting to white out instead of black out. And that means that you're going through, you know, oxygen deprivation, which leads to brain damage. So I was in the beginning stages of brain damage by not being able to breathe. And then my brother comes up to me, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then I hear 911, 911, and I'm extra freaking out. The walls are starting to crumble, tumble in all around me. And right when I thought I was going to pass out and die, all of a sudden I could breathe again. It was the most amazing thing. Just, and the whole thing went away. Whatever happened, it was almost like it was a demon or something. But what happened is I felt like I literally crossed over to the other side, and I came back. And what is very common with NDEs, or near-death experiences, near-death experiencers, is that often when that happens to them, they come back with some kind of supernatural ability. And for me, I'd already had a number of those kind of supernatural abilities: the ability to see angels, the ability to communicate with angels to some degree. And after that happened, I was able to do it better than ever before in my life. And then I started to see UFOs left and right after that episode in 2009.
Wow, that's amazing. So when did you first realize that you actually had special abilities then?
When I was a kid.
When you were a kid?
Mm-hmm. When I was 5 years old, my mom would do the Ouija board with me, and I don't endorse the Ouija board. I know people that use it. I know people that are very effective using it and get very accurate information, and there seems to be no negativity with it. But for me personally, I don't want to use it.
Yeah, I know. When I was younger, I had this experience with the Ouija board. I actually wasn't using it. Some girls, me and one of my friends just got done with sixth grade, and we were going into middle school, but it was still summertime, and we were talking to some girls that went to our school too that were supposed to be in there going to our junior high schools, and so they're messing around, and me and the one girl started to hook up, and so they asked on the Ouija board, how long will you guys be going out? And it said 3 years, and I kind of laughed it off and everything. Well, she ended up not going to that school for over 3 years. I didn't see her for 3 years. So, I mean, not like we were really hooked up. I mean, we split up, but it was just weird because the Ouija board said 3 years, and then I didn't see her for almost exactly 3 years. And it just always stuck in my head, which I thought was weird.
You can get accurate information off of the Ouija board, but, you're really good psychics. They don't need a crutch.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't use it anymore today, for sure. Definitely, because I'd rather trust my own information than somebody else. I was kind of asking you about when you got yours because I was curious. I mean, do you think it has any relation to the connection that you've had with extraterrestrials?
Absolutely. So what I believe that did is it opened a doorway to the astral plane for me.
Okay.
And my mom was explaining to me quantum hologram theory, which at the time nobody even knew what it was. But what is quantum hologram theory? Quantum hologram theory postulates that we live in a multidimensional existence within concentric realities within our own pantheon of selves. So as I'm here in this studio right now, you're interviewing me, I'm in the third dimension in this meat suit. But I can't be myopic and think that's the only dimensional plane that I exist. So we have what we call, and this is metaphysics, I'm a metaphysical minister, by the way, we have a God self. And what is your God self? Your God self is your soul. So your God self is the part of the infinite God that he lends to you, and I said he's not a he, but that God lends to you for this incarnation. And since God is infinite and omnipotent, guess what? So are we. Why? Because we have our God self. So if I have a God self, which I do and we all do, then that means I exist on all dimensional planes simultaneously. So something that I write about in my books and that I do, this part of my spiritual practice, is I remotely view through my higher concentric multi-dimensional selves, thus tapping into my own quantum hologram matrix. So let's say, I'm Reverend Polk in the third dimension. In the fifth dimension, let's say I'm Pleiadian. So now imagine yourself on a terrestrial planet and try and go through your five senses to make it as real as possible for your remote viewing, okay? So you look down at your arm and you see that you have 4 long fingers. You see that your skin is blue. You see that you have no hair on your arm. You see that you have no opposable thumb. You feel your head and feel that your cranium is massive. You feel your face, you feel your eyes, you feel that you have a rudimentary mouth, a very small nose and little slits for ears. And then go through your senses, breathe in the air. What did it feel like? Could you smell the air? Feel the terrestrial planet, the sand between your toes. Wiggle your toes, go through your olfactory sense, feel it, make it as real as possible. Pinch yourself, gently, but pinch yourself. Flick yourself, something to let you feel the reality of the fifth dimension. And then explore, of course, your sight. Explore sound. What can you hear? What can you see? So I look up and I see, and this is the same thing I see all the time, I see 3 massive moons. Earth has 1 moon. Jupiter and Saturn have over 60. But whatever planet this is in the Pleiades, it has 3 moons. Then I kind of look down from straight up above and off to the sky, and I see a formation of UFOs flying information, almost like they're doing a grid search or something. Then I look off in the distance and I see this big, beautiful biodome with these domed domiciles and buildings inside of it, and I see things flying around, and you see activity inside the dome. And then you look down at the terrestrial planet and see that it's made of rocks and sand and even some vegetation, very similar to perhaps even the desert Southwest in Death Valley.
Amazing, amazing. And so that's where, when you go into your fifth dimension, that's what you see, which is beautiful, because everybody would have a different experience. And what I want to hit on really quick is, you don't just feel that you have these abilities because you've had that experience with the extraterrestrials. You do feel like everybody has this potential. Is that correct?
Yeah, a very astute observation. If you don't think you can do it, then guess what? You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I try and do, I try and coach people through it. And I take my time with them. You know, if I can't hurry them along the way, then why even try? You know, and if I can tell they're receptive, they want to learn, then I can absolutely help them expand their consciousness, that's for sure.
Yeah, and the reason I want to hit on that is because I think so many people see people as psychics and mediums and all this stuff, and they think that they're special and gifted, when that's not the fact. That's just their normal senses, and they're just tuned into it. It's every person has these abilities and these senses, and it's very important for us to start to tune into them, especially for our ascension that we're going into. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We all are psychic to at least a lesser extent. Everybody is. And you can actually do mental psychic exercises. And the best one I have found is to just get a plain deck of cards. We're in Vegas. Go get a deck of cards. I'm sure you can find one. And then feel the card on top. The first thing you want to figure out, what color is the suit? You know, is it spades or clubs that are black, or is it diamonds and hearts that are red? Start there, okay? And do it through the whole deck. And make a tab, you know. How much was I accurate? How much did I, you know,
so you're saying flip it over and say, okay, before you flip it over, is it going to be red?
Exactly.
Is it going to be black? Okay, so I'll help you one up on that there too, because I've done different type of exercise through theta healings. So what we were actually told to do before we projected our energy into things that we couldn't see is start to feel, what does this color mean to you? Because colors mean something different to everybody, and that's the one thing too. If you need somebody to describe something for you, don't ask them what that color means to them. It's what it means to you. And so that's why we did it this way. And so we described, what does red mean to me? And so I created those feelings of what I interpreted red as, blue as, and so on. So when, like you're saying, putting your hand over there and feeling the card before you flip it over,
exactly.
That helps you get a better feeling, because what am I feeling on this card? So that helped me, I know, so maybe it might help people out there that try the same trick.
Well, and then to expand the practice, then try and figure out, is it one of the face cards? So, you know, and make up your own system however you wanted to do it. But I started with 10 to ace. So is it between 10 and ace, or is it 2 to 9? Okay, and then try and figure out, you know, if it is a face card, what suit is it? You know, and just keep going and going and going and tabulate everything. It's a great exercise. And at first you won't do that great. And if you continue to do it, and don't go and do it for a week and then decide it doesn't work. Yeah. You can't do that.
Yeah, because the trick is you have to relearn to trust yourself before you're really tapping into a lot of those energies. That's what I found on teaching my students as well too. So yeah, I would say too, start out slow, and then as you keep getting better, maybe expand and start doing more and more.
And if you
color, what face card.
Exactly, and if you get frustrated, then just stop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a better day.
Yep.
So anyway, but that's just a basic psychic exercise I learned when I was a kid through who? Through my mom.
That's awesome. Sounds like you had a wonderful mom.
Oh yeah, yeah. Without mom, I'd probably be an accountant or something, you know, which is a stretch for me.
So I know we're gonna have to go on a commercial break here soon, but you had something that you wanted keyed up. Do you need to lead into that at all?
We can play the Blue Bings commercial if you.
Well, did you need to explain anything to anybody beforehand before we go into that?
Let's do the commercial first.
Okay.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event? My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to johnpolkmedia.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
All right, we're back. That was the Blue Bean commercial for John Polk here, Reverend John Polk. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I wrote the script for it, and I did the voiceover, and my good friend Spaceboy Universe, he's a virtuoso on guitar and on keyboard, so he articulated that background music, which I absolutely love. But that will segue into my book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference. So let's go back in time in a time capsule.
Okay.
Step into my trans-dimensional space-time vehicle, and we will travel back in time to August 28th of 2015 at the Fireside Inn in Portland, Maine, where I was the opening speaker at Experiencers Speak 3 UFO Conference. And so UFO conference called Experiencers Speak, what does that imply? It implies that most people there are experiencers. We had some MUFON scientists, but I would say 90% of everybody there, bare minimum, had seen a UFO, if not had been abducted their whole life. And so what do? As a metaphysical minister, Reiki master instructor, empath, medium, I want to tap into their energy. So what better way to do that than to do a prayer, to invite the gods to join us in our congregation. So that's exactly what I did. So I had everybody hold hands. You know, some people are like, hold hands. I'm like, you don't have to. But everybody hold hands. And if you are not close to somebody, just reach towards them. Don't point at them. Just reach towards them and feel their energy. Now, let's do a breathing regimen. Breathe in through your nose. Release the less through your mouth. Breathe in God. Release the less. You don't want to use terms like release the dark, release the bad, because you give it strength. So breathe in God, release the less. And then I do a chimney sweep of our chakras with the Metatron cube. Who's Metatron? Metatron is also Enoch from the Old Testament of the Bible, now known as Archangel Metatron. He has this geometric, sacred geometric cube that will spin through your chakras, starting at your crown. It will go first counterclockwise, down, all the way down, all the way through your chakras, not stopping at your root, because you have chakras in your feet that connect with the Gaia or earth energy. Allow that energy to go to the core of the earth spirit, not the molten nickel and iron core if you're a scientist, but the spirit of this planet. Capture some of that love energy from this planet and allow it to come back up through you with now the Metatron cube spinning clockwise to release all the toxins, to take any little hooks, daggers off of your chakras. Now, let us surround ourselves individually, each of us, with a circle of God's light. And now, collectively, we surround the entire group with God's light. So now we're all in a love frequency, and we're all safe and protected. So now that we're in a safe haven, in a very beautiful, tranquil place, now I invite the archaliens, or the archangels, that I work with the most. And they are Gabriel, Raphael, Enoch, and Michael. And I ask them to join us in our congregation. And then I say, and I really go out on a limb here, and I say, now, E.T., and believe it or not, this is happening right now also because we're talking about it, but E.T. is in the room with us right now, but we just can't see E.T. Why? Because E.T. is vibrating at a higher frequency, and we can't see into this extra dimensional realm, but I can teach people how to do it. And if you allow me to do so, I can expand your consciousness so that you can live in these multidimensional realms just like I do. And then I stick my neck out even further, and I say, my goal is before the conclusion of this conference, that somebody who's never seen anything before will see something for the first time, and or those that walk in multiple worlds like I do will experience something that they've never experienced before. So the first day expires, all the speakers were really great. The second day is almost completely over, and now I'm kind of going, oh God, what did I get myself into? And Travis Walton, keynote speaker, perhaps the most famous abductee in world history. Keynote speaker, the last speaker. So we dim the lights because we're about to watch his new DVD that he was promoting pretty heavily, and he's going on this campaign around the country to all these UFO conferences, talking and selling it, and he was doing quite well doing so. But yeah, right before the whole thing was about to begin, these four beings, two with blue skin, not of this world, walk in through the double doors, and they walk up to me. They could have walked up to anybody. They walk up to me, and their hands were curiously open, like you would have a Bible, half in one palm, half in the other, and they walk up with money in their hand, and it's very strange. But I didn't see their faces well because it was dark. And they're like, do we pay you to see Travis? And I'm like, no, let me go find Audrey Hewins. So let me explain who Audrey Hewins is. Audrey Hewins was the girlfriend of Travis Walton back at that time, not anymore, but she's the one who puts on the Experiencer Speak conferences in Portland, Maine up until last year. She didn't have a 6, but she went 5 years in a row. Very successful conferences. So anyway, she's got a twin sister, and her twin sister have been on television multiple times talking about how they've been abducted and used as breeders since they were 5 years old. Unfortunately, Audrey cannot have children, and I wouldn't talk about that because it's personal, but she's gone on record on television talking about that from what they have done to her, using her basically as a gestation chamber for these hybrids until it's usually around the beginning of the second trimester or the end of the first before they take them, before they're mature enough to be taken from there into an incubation chamber on a ship or perhaps another planet. Anyway, so I find her twin sister, Debbie, and Debbie in turn finds her twin sister, Audrey, and then Audrey can't see the money, so she pulls them into the light off to the side. And mind you, the room was shaped like an L, and I'm here at the top of the L, and all the speakers selling their books were at the foot of the L, so I couldn't see what was going on. So she pulls them into the light to take their money, and she immediately notices that 2 of the 4 have blue skin. It was a male and a big blonde female, and they are not agreeing on the money, the 2 blue beings. They really start to argue about the money right in front of Travis and Audrey, which was kind of peculiar. And Audrey's like, hey, everybody, just calm down. Here, give me 4 of those, and I'll let you in. They didn't even have enough money. They didn't even have, so when your currency is consciousness, you don't understand primitive paper notes. And just to show how much more there is to the monetary system than just something that's paper or coin.
Yeah.
So then she's looking at their leader, who I will call Don, and he is pictured right here. Now, why does he call himself, and he told us his name was Don, why does he call himself Don? He said, because you will not be able to pronounce my real name. And I believe that he did not have an audibly spoken name that was created through a voice box. I believe that when you're that ascended, that you have a vibration frequency signature, and that's your name. Okay, yeah. But he's talking to a number of people, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but he said his name was Don. So she pulls these 2 into the light, and she notices that his skin is blue. His skin is blue, not like Blue Man Group here in Vegas, more like a Mediterranean blue, like a bluish blue-gray, if you will.
Pastel.
Yeah, if you will. Yeah, and anyway, so she's looking around his eyes for the crow's feet, because she understood body art and how paint adheres to, epidermis, people's skin, and she's looking for telltale signs of cracking of the paint around his eyes, especially where your crow's feet are. She couldn't see any telltale signs of that. So then she looks at his arm to see if she can see any paint bunching around the hair follicles. She sees no evidence of that either. So it kind of struck her as odd, and she ultimately took their money, and they went up and talked to Travis. I want you to buy the books. I'm not going to tell you everything. And then they go and they sit down. And where do they sit down? They sat down right in front of me. So we watched Travis's DVD, which was brilliant, actually. He likes it much better than the movie Fire in the Sky, which I thought was good, but I thought the DVD was even better, and it was. And then after the question and answer time period after that, all four of them, the two blue beings and the two others, they walk up to me. So now let me give you a physical description of what they looked like. Now this is very strange. So here on the book cover, this isn't totally an accurate portrayal of who they were and what they looked like. However, Don, who is pictured right here, that's pretty accurate. He was wearing a hat, kind of like a baseball hat, but it was more of a fishing hat. He had on script glasses, and his hat, the brim of his hat, was pulled curiously low below his eyebrows crown as to cover his face. And he was wearing like a flannel shirt, jeans, white sneakers. And okay, so then the female, I believe, shapeshifted into the male wearing the hoodie, because I never saw the female. It was very strange. A lot of us saw the female, a lot of females saw the female, a lot of males did not see the female. Travis Walton saw the female, but I never did, and neither did most of the key witnesses. So back when they got back to me, Don's pretty accurate portrayal of what he looked like. The guy in the hoodie is almost identical also. Tall, blonde, Aryan-looking, blonde hair parted on the side, wearing the hoodie. I guess a good-looking alien. You know, he looked like maybe he was Nordic, but they said they were Pleiadian. I can't be sure exactly what they were. And so they're standing right next to me. As close as I am to you is as close as I was to them. And then, so the other one, this one pictured down here, he was maybe 5 foot tall. He was completely bald. He had a Fu Manchu beard that extended only from the bottom of his chin, very similar to that of the Egyptians. Very tight-fitting sunglasses, no hair on his face or head except for the Fu Manchu, white cut-off sleeveless shirt, blue jeans, moccasins, kind of resembled a biker. And then the fourth one that is not pictured on here looks like an ancient alien astronaut theorist who's been on Ancient Aliens quite a bit. His name is Jason Martell. You know Jason Martell? He looked exactly like Jason Martell, except he had big, black, dispassionate eyes with no color in them whatsoever. Very, very haunting and trippy to look at. So I'm not going to give you every single detail, but I will tell you a little bit more. So he comes up to me. They all walk right up to me. Out of everybody in the room, there's 150 people on the second day. They walk up to me, and Don opens a dialogue with me. He starts talking to me first. I did not talk to him first. And he said, see that one, the one that looks like Jason Martell? He said his stepfather was drugging him. Very strange, unorthodox. His stepfather's drugging him, but now he's in my custody, and I love my son, and I'm going to nurture him and nurse him back to health. And so I congratulate him on getting his family back together. You have your son, he's with his real father, da-da-da-da. And then I'm going to leave out a bunch of details now because I want you to get the book at johnpolkmedia.com. What was that? johnpolkmedia.com. And then all of a sudden there's all these witnesses surrounding us, and people are starting to spin questions at them like, you know, why is your skin blue? So imagine this, Jeff, imagine this. You are Don from the Pleiades. It took me probably 7 minutes of talking to him before I realized, oh my God, I am talking to an extraterrestrial. He did the Jedi mind trick on all of us before they even perhaps walked into the room. It was a trip. So going back to Audrey, after Audrey, you know, did the exchange with the money, she blacked out and forgot about them until somebody brought it up to her the next day. You've been an abductee your whole life. Your whole life since you were 5 years old, and you don't remember that blue beings walked into your UFO conference. How do you not remember that? Yeah. They did the Jedi mind trick, or in my Yahweh book, I term it as alien anesthesia. They administered alien anesthesia and just did the whammy on all of us. So the crowd is surrounding us. Couple people. I'll give credit to R. Keith Andrews, former Psychic of the Year in Canada. He asked the best questions because at the certain point, man, I'm just all blacked out. I'm standing there in a state of paralysis. I was going to try and be rude and take a bunch of pictures, and I couldn't even lift my... Imagine you're sitting next to an alien who was asking me about my Yahweh book. I was trying to sell an alien my Yahweh book. And I told I was like, well, you can use your credit card if you want to.
I think I know the story. I don't think I need the book.
I spin my Mac around. I'm like, look, right here, you go to my website, and or you can just buy the paperback while you're here, you know. And I could tell I'm starting to lose him because he didn't get it. You know, I'm asking for money for a tangible item. And then, you know, to them, they would exchange consciousness.
And you could have been an extra dimensional seller.
Yeah, I mean, they barter with consciousness. I'm like, I'm wanting some greenbacks, buddy, you know. So, anyway, So another caveat in the story, our Keith Andrews asked him if they were Pleiadian. He mentioned before I did, because I was all blacked out at this point, standing there halfway coherent, but I couldn't really talk anymore. He asked them about their blue skin, and I'll leave out the rest of what he said, but he asked the best questions out of all of us. And then I'm about to, finally the cobwebs are starting to clear. I'm like, oh, my phone is in my hand, and I'm about to just do this. Bang, 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 and take a bunch of pictures. Right when I was about to do that, the one that looked like Jason Martell, the one that was supposedly drugged by his stepfather, so now this whole story comes into play, why they said that to me in the first place. He walks around to the front of my table to distract me from Don and everybody else over here to my left, and he looks me in the eye, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. I see an alien with these big black eyeballs, and I can feel him doing the whammy on me. I'm starting to phase out, and he goes, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki. And it reminded me, it was very reminiscent of Rain Man, the movie Rain Man, when Dustin Hoffman played Rain Man. And then after that, I was totally in a state of paralysis. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I could move my eyes. I was halfway coherent. And then one of the other key witnesses, he was the videographer. His name is Ron Sharfy from New Jersey, does IT for a living. He's got like a $5,000 digital camera, and he was going to start videotaping everything. He froze.
Yeah, I don't think I would remember to take a picture in the middle of all of that as well.
No, everybody froze, and just stuck in time, And then Don is people are coming up and hugging him and stuff, and the tall one with the hoodie on is getting very uncomfortable and agitated, and he's going, we need to go, we need to go, we need to go now. So they left through the double doors. None of us thought to even follow them out of the building. And I didn't see this, but it was reported by somebody who could not take a picture of it. And a lot of the witnesses are not talking because they're afraid to. MUFONers are afraid to, and I understand it. MUFONers, I understand it. MUFONers, I get it. Did I say MUFON? I understand. I'm not going to use your names, MUFON, but I understand you're not allowed to talk about it. That they've just simply dematerialized in the lobby. So then right after that, the first person to get their faculties back was Ron Sharfy, the videographer. And so he needed to make a phone call, just need to make a phone call right after that. So he walks out of the front of the hotel, and he's like kind of standing in the parking lot, so he's not in the lobby being loud and rude, and he sees this white pulse go poof right off the top of the building, and it was very reminiscent of the UFO that was videotaped in Jerusalem over the Temple Mount.
Wow.
And that's basically what he saw, this just big white pulse of light, poof, and then it was gone. I believe that it was an interdimensional space-time vehicle, that it wasn't necessarily a physical solid craft, at least not in the third dimension, and that it's capable of interdimensional travel, perhaps timeline travel. I don't know, the sky's the limit. So without going into too much more detail, that's the Blue Being story. And you can imagine if something like that happened to you and 20 other witnesses, it would change your life forever, and it certainly has.
And there's so much more in this amazing book. I know we're getting close on the end of this interview, unfortunately. So let's get into your other book here. The Biblical God is an Alien.
And what's his name? Yahweh. So, and I love to use this term, creator God aliens. And one of my producers, his name's Eric at Awakening Man on Twitter, he's like, you need to explain that to people because you act like everybody knows what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, so what is a creator God alien? There are many tiers of aliens, extraterrestrials out there. The highest gods rule the heavens. The lower gods rule the planets in the underworld. So what was Yahweh? He was one of the lower gods that ruled the planets in the underworld, but he was granted the gift of being a creator God alien. And what does that mean? He can fashion life, and however they choose to do it. And if you want to go back into Zecharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki, how they found the indigenous, some kind of primitive form of man, and mixed it with their own DNA to fashion the model human that was in their image. So supposedly we look like Anunnaki, except we just don't have the mental capacity and abilities that they do. And we were used as a slave race, basically to mine gold and other precious stones, gems, minerals, ores out of the earth for them, for their technologies. So Yahweh, the biblical God, is an alien. Let's talk a few things about the Old Testament. Oh, ordained ministers, did you ever read the book? I'm just calling you out. Did you ever read the book? The book, you know, the one that you profess to know in and out. Yahweh, Genesis 6, the sons of the gods descended to earth and mated with the daughters of men. Who are the sons of the gods? Well, they were the fallen angels. Angels cannot have sex. They're angels. They don't have a physical body. How can they have sex? They're also known as the Nephilim or the Nephilim. What does the name or term Nephilim literally translate into? Those that deceived mankind.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yes. And they ended up creating demigods, basically. And procreation was out of hand. And Yahweh was incredibly upset about it because he, you know, told them, warned them up front, you can't have sex with mortals. And they did it anyway. And I think he knew that they were going to do it, because what did Yahweh do? He was doing his own creator God alien thing on another celestial body, and knowing that he would ultimately come back. So what he did on this planet is not new or unique. He set up religion so that everybody would worship him. Why? So that he could gain their prayer energies. You know, you pray, there's energy in prayer, we all know that. So what would an alien get out of your prayer energy? Incredible supernatural power and ability. There's so many movies that have been based on supernatural beings absorbing people's souls. You know, why? Because there's incredible power in the soul. So not only did he receive our prayer energy, but he received our souls as well, at least a fraction of it, that would go through his false matrix afterlife called heaven, purgatory, or hell. And he gained tremendous power from this. So where this was making him incredibly powerful in the past, it's now making him weak. Why? Because he's a lower god that rules one of the planets or the underworld. He wants to be recognized as a higher god that rules the lower creator god aliens. So to be counted amongst the highest gods, he has to let go of this planet. As long as we pray to him, as long as we believe Christianity and all the religions are real, we're basically praying to aliens, and we're actually keeping him bound to this earth. So I have this psychic healer in Sedona named Thea Ivy, and she is masterful. And so she and I were talking about this during my hypnotic regression. And I was telling her, if Yahweh leaves the planet in the shambles that it's in now, it's going to thwart his ascension process, because he's doing it for selfish intentions. And, you know, you own a wellness center. Intention is absolutely everything.
Exactly.
Even if you might be wrong, if your intentions are just and true and pure, you know, your soul will find a way to the light. But anyway, so enlightenment can only be achieved through disclosure. So first we have to have disclosure. Only then can we achieve enlightenment. And he wants to let go. He wants to let go. And Thea, my healer psychic lady, she was telling me that through the regression she did on me, she said she can see almost like handcuffs and chains holding him down to this planet. So that's why there's all this chaos, all this monotony, you know, everything is just, you know, as above, so below. Yeah. So what's going on in the heavens, if you think about what's going on here on our terrestrial, third dimensional earth plane? I don't know. There's something going on, and I believe we're going to have disclosure in the next couple years, largely because the extraterrestrials want to ascend to a higher level of status in the cosmos.
Yeah. Well, that is very fascinating stuff that I haven't really even looked at before and seen it on that scale. But I love what you're saying, because you're also leaving that open. Is if we realize the God that we are, that we don't need to pray to him, because that's the thing that I'm recognizing now. The more that we pray to God and go, God save me, God do this, God do that, we're the victim. And we shouldn't be the victim. We come from that creative energy. We are that God energy. So I say, pray to yourself, you know, learn to love yourself. And me learning to love myself has also taught me to learn to love everybody else around me, which I think is very important. But I see me as the, you know, God. No different than everybody else. I mean, I see everybody as God and all of us as one. Does this make sense?
Well, I mentioned earlier, we all have a God self.
Yeah.
So, yes. So when you pray to yourself. It sounds arrogant, but it's not.
Yeah, I know it sounds arrogant, but it's not wrong.
It's not.
I'm in strengthening myself and knowing that I can do it. Yes, I might need some people around me to help me achieve certain things, but yes, I think we all need to stand up for ourselves and not be that victim looking for something else to save us out of there.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go into a commercial, and this is actually poetry that I wrote when I was on acid when I was 19 years old. And my buddy Spaceboy, he took the poetry, it's actually prose, and he created a song out of it. And Maestro, take it away.
All right, John.
I awaken. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. Piercing a hole into empty space, I split the heavens to create my own orifice in the universe. I reach inside to pull out handfuls of cosmic secrets that no one's supposed to know. No one's supposed to know. But then as the stars twinkle, along with the ambition in my eyes, I smile to enlighten the face of space that highlights lost perception. Ultimately, I fathom to depths within, absorbing non-physical reality. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. With every inhale, stellar dust settles at the mouth of the orifice to shade my prior perceptions. But now, in light of my new beginning, I lose myself in the bottomless void, providing me crystal clear vision. To see the source of starry lights and cosmic corridors, I spoil myself with quenching perceptions that moisten my eyes of stone. But then, as I look away from immortal glamour, I see over my shrugging shoulders a speck of reality's light. In bitter conceit, I lift my nose and turn my back at what's no longer me. Experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experience. I awaken to be filled with a breath of reality and memories from high in the skies.
All right, you're back to Consciously Rising. I'm here with Reverend John Polk, author, abductee, and one amazing guy. We've been talking to him for the last hour. I hope you've been listening in to the whole thing because amazing information. Really want to quickly, you believe that their message is definitely a good message in what they're coming across for abducting in a lot of ways. There's good and bad, but can you leave your imprint on what you believe is happening in the twist?
Absolutely. So as an abductee, it has done so many positive things for me in my life. It's very common, and there's research studies that prove this through Dr. Edgar Mitchell's FREE, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, experiencer.org, co-founded by Mary Rodwell and Ray Hernandez and Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Sixth Man to Walk on the Moon, and also Dr. Rudy Shield, Emeritus Professor from the Harvard Smithsonian, who authored an article in my Yahweh book. But their studies conclude through quantitative and qualitative analysis that for the very most part, experiencers and abductees gain supernatural and psychic abilities after their encounters. yeah, there's the negative ones, but for the most part, 80+% of their studies, the research findings demonstrate that these encounters are positive, and that they're loving and benevolent, and the individuals that go through these abductions. And actually, I was corrected by Sherry Wild at the Awareness Life Expo. She said, "Don't use the term." She said, "Because you volunteered for this. You did before you were born. You signed a contract with the Creator that you were going to go through this so you could grow closer and stronger with the universal God consciousness. So I'm a volunteer for this. I'm a volunteer so that I can help others that are going through it. I can talk to them instead of counsel them, let them know that they're not alone, and then actually help them and show them how they can expand their supernatural abilities because of what happened to them." So in my estimation, that is the most positive thing you could possibly think of. Extraterrestrials that are part of your soul circle.
Yeah.
Whether the Zetas or the Pleiadians or the Arcturians, the Andromedans, and I'm connected to all of them. I'm Scottish, Irish, English, German, Dutch, Italian, Sicilian, and American Indian on both sides of my family. But then I'm Andromedan, I'm Arcturian, I'm Pleiadian, I'm Lemurian, I'm Zeta Reticuli also. So I'm a cosmic mutt also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but through being abducted by all these different factions and species and groups of extraterrestrials, they've all given me different abilities that, your average person doesn't have. Like I showed you the Mary Rodwell photo where you could see basically her higher self next to her in the photo.
And we'll put that on the back screen too, so people can see that actual photo.
Yeah, so that was something that they basically enabled me to do. When I was a kid, I could see angels, but nothing like I can now. I can see them all the time. I can see them around any person that I meet.
Yeah, and you got a really amazing photo of a UFO you took right outside your front door or something at your house in Sedona just recently as well too.
And it was so cool. It was about 5:25 in the morning. I'm laying in bed. I wasn't able to sleep at all that night, although I probably slept from 3 to 5, which is the hours that they usually take you. But I think that they really wanted me to see the craft. So I'm like, really? I have to go outside? And they're like, yeah, come outside. So I go outside, put some clothes on. It's kind of cold. It was October 2nd, 5:31 in the morning. I look up, bam, there's this UFO about 1,000 feet from my house in Sedona, close to an incredibly powerful vortex area called Thunder Mountain, which is the view from my front door, actually from my front window, and it's a hot spot for UFO activity. And also on the night of the eclipse in Sedona at the same mountain, I see this orb. I've never seen anything quite like this before. I've seen orbs before, but this one was doing a figure 8 horizontally. And I call my mom and tell her about it, and she said, well, was it vertically doing the figure 8 or was it horizontally doing the figure 8? And I'm like, I guess that plays into sacred geometry. And she's like, it does. But it was doing this horizontal figure 8.
Infinity sign?
Yeah, infinity, exactly. Right at the very top of Thunder Mountain, which is known to be an ET military base. Everybody local knows all about it.
And you wonder why you happen to move across the street then.
It figures.
So that probably won't be the first photo you have or the last one.
Yeah, so real quick, I sell my house in Florida. The hurricane wrecked it. I do pretty good, travel across the country. My uncle lets me live in his house in Sedona for about 90 days for free. I mean, I'm
Beautiful.
so totally blessed, and it is my responsibility to give back to the universe. So, hey, my name is Reverend John M. Polk, johnpolkmedia.com. You can find all my information, jpolk2 at cfl.rr.com if you care to email me. And Jeff?
Hey, thank you. I feel so blessed to have you on and been able to meet you over this weekend. I mean, fascinating stories. You're such a great person. I had such a great time chatting with you and Brad and everybody over the weekend. So thank you. And I really would love to have you on more because there's so much more we can talk about. I mean, we've just barely got into everything. And, again, we got to wrap it up. So thank you.
Hey, all right. Thank you very much,
Is
Jeff.
there anything else you want to share?
Look forward to the next interview with Brad Olson.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we'll have all his contact information. We'll have photos in the backdrop and everything. Thank you.